Hello, everyone. So my name is Iska. I'm a business analyst at Thoughtworks, and I have 6 years of experience in the space of product design and innovation. So very involved in user research, and in the past 2 years, more in the software development space. And in my free time, I really love to travel and get to know new cultures.
Yeah, and the second one here in the pictures is me. So I am Fatima, business analyst at Thoughtworks, and I have around 10 years of experience in product management, specifically as product manager. And yeah, in my free time, I really love to connect with nature and to go to the mountains, especially if I can go with my little dog, Lua.
Hi, I am Chrissy. I am a product manager, not at Thoughtworks, but at ImmoScout, and have been one for 5 years. And similar to Fatima, I like to spend my free time outside, either go running or skiing in winter times, as you can see. So having mentioned ImmoScout, this is also where the three of us have met. So all of us have been working with or for ImmoScout for the past year or so. And this also gave us a common ground and very similar experiences, which help us tell our story today.
Exactly. And as a warm-up task, we would like to ask you about something. So how do you feel about building products and having a meaningful impact? Do you feel great, or are there any moments when you feel like you are failing a bit? So we will launch a poll. I hope you can see it and answer it. So not sure how many of you have actually some experience being part of a product team, because we know that there are a lot of different roles here involved, like developers, product managers, of course, UX people, tech people, data scientists. But we think the answer could be very similar in the same circumstances. So yeah, let's see how the results look like, because a lot of you have answered already. So sharing the results. Yeah, okay. So 88% are having the same feeling. This is not a surprise, actually, but yeah, when we decided to give this talk was mainly because, we wanted to share our experience of having this type of feelings and find a way to relieve them, and how we find a way to relieve them. So the reality is that, especially when you work in a product team, there are a lot of different areas, right, that you need to understand very well, like marketing, sales, and we've seen that in the previous talk, right? But the pressure that we suffer sometimes, combined with not fulfilling the expectations, like the deadlines, the goals, KPIs, this generates a lot of frustration from all parts, and it's completely normal, I will say. So the three of us presented today felt like this sometimes, and we kind of found an approach that is helping us to move on and keep being focused on the continuous improvement towards what? Towards the goal of transforming our teams into ones that have meaningful impact.
Yes, exactly. And precisely because of what Fatima said, and this feeling of failing, which we all have, as we just established, sometimes more, sometimes less. We, as Fatima said, started talking about this quite a lot among the three of us, and now are here to share our experience. So today we want to invite you on a journey with us, and during this journey, hopefully provide you with some inspiration from our wins, but also and predominantly our fails when building products to overcome your own challenges, or in the least remind each of us that we're all struggling sometimes. So with this thought in mind, we want to share our 3 underlying beliefs with you. The first one is keeping it real. As with most things in life, it's never like it's in the books. So this is particularly true for building products, in my opinion. And for me, it's like learning how to surf. It seems so straightforward when you do it on land, and then it's a complete mess in the water. And same as learning how to surf, building products is also, unfortunately, not magic, but very hard work. And the worst part is that it can be bloody hard at times, and can make you feel like you're taking 2 steps forward, but 3 steps back. But sometimes you just have to take baby steps. Unfortunately, we can't provide you with any magic tricks today, but instead we'll give you very concrete examples of the baby steps that we took. And last but not least, nobody's perfect, but we think that's entirely okay. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's sort of our life advice. And it's important for us that we all remember that all the processes and methods we learn about today or in general are there to help us create great products. There should not be at all measuring scales of how good we are at creating products. So always remember, it has to work for you and not the other way around.
Thank you, Chrissy. So before diving a bit more into the content, we want to give you a bit more context on ImmoScout. So if there are any Germans in the audience, you probably know it, as it's the market leading real estate platform in Germany. And also according to a survey they ran, 99% of over 18-year-olds in Germany know ImmoScout. And that's no surprise with over 20 million users per month. So it's a medium-sized scale-up company with a very strong product vision and advanced engineering practices and a complex architecture because it has been on the market for over 20 years. So as you can imagine, it had to evolve together with the technology to be able to grow and stay competitive. And it just started out as a startup, became a unicorn, and then went public in 2015. And now it has over 700 employees and over 250 engineers. And another thing I think that's important to better understand some of the challenges that we are facing is that, like Airbnb or Uber, it is a network marketplace. So what does that mean? So it does mean it has more than one customer. So it means it has to cater for and connect 3 user groups. So as you can see here in the graph, right, we're connecting seekers, homeowners, and real estate agents, which how you can imagine often have conflicting needs that we need to balance. So that can be a tough challenge on all levels, organizational, the team level, and to find the right focus for these different customer groups. So furthermore, as we're talking about customer centricity today, we want to share some of the best practices that ImmoScout already implemented to ensure to be more customer focused. For example, we're working with OKRs or objectives and key results that get created and readjusted every 4 months. We also aware or use the double diamond framework. They have dedicated research teams to ensure that we know how the market and the customer needs evolve. From an organizational structure perspective, a few years ago as well, the teams were restructured in a way that they fit the different user journeys. And as well, we work with agile cross-functional teams. That means collaborating with POs, developers, UX designers, data scientists to come up with a solution together. So if we have already all these best practices, what is still going wrong?
Exactly. So the company is applying and pushing the teams to follow the best practices. And also on the business side, the company is going very well and growing and growing. But we still found ourselves feeling like we were not doing very well or that something was fading. So you might be wondering what might be going wrong there. So we asked ourselves the same question, and we tried to start from the beginning. And we found out that there were several pain points present there in most of the cases. So for instance, here we can see several, and we found out that there are some teams that are not very motivated, or that they feel like they have lack of ownership of their products. Or in some cases, some features or some products that were not being used. Or yeah, another one, the deadlines that were not met. So I wonder how many of you are familiar with any of these pain points. So we will launch another poll. And the thing is that throughout our career, we probably all experience a multitude of these things, even though it seems they should not be there, as we are already seemingly using the best practices, right? So yeah, well, thanks for participating. You are a lot. And looks like there are 2 that are really the winners. So maybe we can just close the poll and share the results already. And that's it. So we have two clear winners here, the lack of clear goals and the lack of ownership. And this is very, very interesting to see, yeah, your experience about that. So yeah, now what? Now we know about the pain points, and but do you have any clue about why they are there? So what's the root cause of it? So yeah, last poll, promise. So this time, yeah, we want, yeah, we think that maybe there are a lot of reasons why this is happening, but we are interested in knowing your opinion about these three: the features that need to be delivered and have a deadline in place, no feedback loop with users, or dependencies with other teams. So which ones are the ones that you are experiencing more, or yeah, that do you think are more frequent? Okay, so I think enough participation. So let's have a look at the results.
So nice. We can see that the answers are spread out over all three. Like the no feedback loop with users has slightly more, but I think in general we can say that there, yeah, we can find all of those among all of us. So this is exactly matches our experience actually. So we also have the feeling that it's a combination of all of them. Maybe not all at once, and some stronger for some than others, depending on the company and the context, but more times than not, they're all there. So what now, you may ask? Well, now we would like to tell you the story of he managed to actually mitigate those three issues, or as we like to call them, dilemmas, and how we were slowly but surely overcoming them. And it's also the story of how we managed to give teams with a lack of ownership more ownership and move more towards meaningful impact. And not only for us as the team, but also the customer and the business. So let's start to have a look at the first dilemma. So I think we all know if the double diamond approach teaches us one thing, it's that you should always be starting with the problem and not the solution, right? But I'm sure you also know situations where this is basically thrown out of the window and where predefined solutions are basically handed down to the team, maybe with a little note saying to be delivered by the end of the month. I want to tell you a quick story about a concrete situation I have in mind, which is, however, only an example representing very similar other examples. So there was a meeting between a very important customer and our management to talk about, strategic things or to build up loyalty. And the customer was not very happy. And he was especially not very happy because he was missing a product or a specific feature on our website. And he was complaining a lot about that. So in order to make the customer happy, the manager basically promised this product to the customer and also agreed on specific criteria and a specific deadline. And later on, the manager would then approach the team and would tell us what is expected and which time frame. Sounds familiar? I think we all have experienced something like that. So there we were. We were in a situation yet again where we had a fixed goal to create the product, pretty much fixed scope and definitely a fixed deadline. So I think you can all imagine how the story continues. The team obviously was not feeling empowered at all or even motivated. And there was actually a lot of stress because of the deadline. We did meet the deadline in this particular example, but the product was not as valuable for the customer as they thought, surprise, surprise. And obviously even less for other customers because they didn't request this product in the first place. For the business, it was essentially a waste of money and time, and the knee-jerk reaction was that the team was not doing a good enough job. Quite depressing, right? So we thought so too, and this is when we decided that something had to change because we were essentially creating a lose-lose-lose situation for everyone. So this is when we started to become more empowered and to create meaningful impact. At least we started on the journey then. So what did we do next time we faced a similar situation? So what we did is we tried to tackle the dilemma in the only way that we were able to do at that point. We proactively initiated collaboration between us, the team, and the management with regards to the goals we set for ourselves, or OKR, and the concrete scope of the product. So what does that mean concretely? So firstly, we suggested to the manager a more outcome-driven goal, or as I said, OKR for the initiative than just build this product by the end of the month. As no proper validation of the pain point or the solution was conducted beforehand, and we knew we wouldn't have any time to conduct that before we have to start building in order to meet the deadline, we decided to go with a goal to focus on validating the need for it. So we called it something like, we want to prove if customers value this product. The second thing we did was that we agreed with the management to provide to the customer with an MVP instead of the entirely finished product. So essentially, we try to fake it till we make it. In order to quickly measure our progress towards our goal to definitely meet the deadline and also to raise as little capacity as possible. So this in the end created two potential outcomes. If the value of the product could actually be proven, we could spend more time and capacity on refining it even after the deadline. And if the product showed no value, it would remain in the MVP status or could even be removed eventually. So either way, the promise to the customer would be fulfilled. What we also did is we directly included the developers in order to understand what's the easiest and cheapest way of meeting these criteria, even though it meant that we would have to do a lot of stuff manually. By this, we established a very lean process of failing fast. And because implementation of the MVP was very quick, we were then able to validate the core of the problem more. So the question is now again, what happened next? The product actually failed again, but this time we were quite happy about that. And why? Because our main goal was to prove if the product has any value. And we proved that it didn't actually have that much value, and that was okay as we failed early, or at least as early as possible. So what's the learning of this dilemma, particularly our actions and wins? So from our perspective in cases like this, try to involve the team from the start and make them part of the hunt for the easiest way to build a product in order to meet the customer's criteria or the core value. This will have a clear impact on the feeling of ownership, as you can imagine, and it also helps to establish this fail early mindset in the team. Moreover, having influence on the actual goal, how the goal is called, increases the motivation massively. On the customer side, building the MVPs is very useful, as you all know, to establish this direct feedback. So it's not useless at all. So you will probably be able to quickly validate and understand the underlying pain points better. The most important part, the collaboration on the business side between the team and the management helped us in our case to save a lot of money. But on the other side, and that's even more important, we started to build a lot of trust between the management and the team. And this is actually, in hindsight now, the baseline for everything that came after that and what Fatima is now going to talk about.
Exactly. So you've seen how many benefits are coming just from the first step that we are sharing with you. But if we look at the examples shared by Chrissy, we still had one dilemma in place, which we wanted to resolve in order to relieve some of our pain points, or even better, to create some gains in the team. And this dilemma is about the disconnection between discovery and delivery, and how big it is, the validation loop or the learning loop. So let's have a look at where we are now. After our first step, we can still see several things that were not working well, as I've said. So first is that the delivery team was not involved at all since the beginning of the process. So in both examples, they just were asked to develop a certain feature or product. And this meant that the team was not understanding the why of those products or features. And also there were many surprises coming from the technical side during the delivery phase because they were involved too late. So for instance, there were metrics that had to be shown in a report, and they were really complex and difficult to calculate. And another thing to highlight here is the feedback loop that was still too long, especially if we have low knowledge about the assumptions that are made, or low confidence about the potential impact the features that we were asked to deliver. So in the example, the feature that actually failed was already part of the contract with the customer, when later on we discovered that the users were not interested on it. And another thing to highlight here is the fact that we were failing slow, but also succeeding slow. So from business perspective, we are still wasting money and time and having a very slow path to achieve the business goals. So yeah, we decided to go one step further by trying to connect discovery and delivery sides of the process. So, but maybe many of you are wondering, what do you mean exactly with discovery? And we know that there are many ways of describing what's discovery and what's not. And we don't want to go into this type of discussion today, but it is maybe worth it to explain that we are referring to the limb loop, where one of the ideas behind it is to keep the loop as shorter as possible so that you can learn very fast. And actually there is a talk later on about this topic. I'm sure that it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, this is the main idea that we wanted to bring up here to resolve this dilemma. To keep in mind that we should try to apply this type of loop in the entire process and not just during the delivery phase or during the discovery phase. It is very important that we try to avoid having a masked waterfall in our process. Yes, I said waterfall, because it was actually what we found out in our case, because of the disconnection between discovery team and us, the delivery team. And as we gained a lot of trust from the business side and the managers after implementing the first step, next time we had a similar challenge, we were able to propose and to try a different approach. And this approach consisted of, surprise, surprise, collaboration. Collaboration this time between the discovery and the delivery team. Actually, this is like the main topic for the YConf, right? So I am very happy that we are sharing this type of learnings. So yeah, we defined our own process together, assuming that apart from the delivering a feature or a product, it will be needed some time within the quarter to identify pain points, validate them, identify ideas to resolve the pain points and validate them too. And more important part, to iterate the entire process, right? So to build, learn, measure and learn iteratively. So one of the things we did was to schedule regular catch-up meetings, including both teams. So the discovery team could share the insights or learnings from the last research, and also was a great way to provide to all parts visibility about next steps coming. And also this made that the team was completely aware about the why behind any small or big user story that they had in their boards. And therefore the tech decisions could be made much more easier for them. Also, we introduced a new role, the tech feature champion or OKR champion. And this means that one of or two engineers were assigned to a topic. And thanks to this role, the tech people was participating more actively in product workshops or analysis and discussions done during the discovery phase. And also for us was easier to keep a good balance between the tech capacity spent on the on the delivery side and on the discovery side. And yeah, but still more benefits that we've seen coming from this collaboration. One was that we found many ways to easily test assumptions and build experiments quickly. And those experiments or ideas were coming sometimes from technical people. And yeah, another thing, we were able to do early test feasibility checks, which allowed us to avoid surprises when the moment of building the feature arrived, like it happened in the past. And if we look at the business side, we were as well defining goals, as Chrissy explained before, that we gained in the first step. But this time we were including the experimentation as part of our process. So we don't talk about features or initiatives in the OKR sessions anymore, at least in the sense of having a roadmap in place. So let's summarize a bit the actions and the wins that we learned with this dilemma. So looking at the team, thanks to the increase of the collaboration, we've noticed an increase in the team's motivation, team's ownership, and also the performance in general. And honestly, it was not one of our main goals, but we've seen we've been increasing our velocity month by month. So it was amazing for us, this surprise. Also looking at the customer, thanks to the combination of both sides, we increased the velocity of validating and testing ideas. And in general, all parts were understanding much more better the customers. And looking at the business side, we reinforced our lean approach in general with all the changes that we mentioned. And this meant that we can fail or success faster, which means that the business impact will be achieved earlier than before. So again, we gained more trust from the business side. But yeah, still that this was the second step of the approach. So you can imagine there is another dilemma in place, and Iska is going to share it with you.
Thank you, Fatima. So the last step we identified to have more meaningful impact is the topic of ownership. And as we've seen from the poll, many of you seem to be familiar with this issue. So what I'm referring to is full end-to-end project. So owning the technical side, code-based architecture, as well as ownership of the problem space, what Fatima and Chrissy were more referring to. So as you can see in the graph, not having end-to-end ownership means that multiple teams are working on the same user journey. And as you can imagine or probably know, this can cause a lot of dependencies and therefore delays and misalignment if it's not handled with intention. So what are the reasons for not having end-to-end ownership? Sometimes I think it can be just missing trust of the teams, just simply a wrong organizational structure, can be as well missing skill set, right? You need also people to have a certain understanding of connecting this. And of course, as well, size of a company and its associated complexity can be a reason for that. For example, like it can be in network marketplaces, if you have to serve multiple customer groups and that interact with each other and have conflicting needs, the business and the software architecture cannot be just separated as cleanly. So at ImmoScout, I think many similar scale-up companies that are on the market for such a long time, it is unavoidable that often the user flow doesn't match the underlying architecture, because maybe some parts are still in legacy, others have already been moved. So there is no easy or quick solution to have full ownership as a team. So while Fatima and Chrissy talked more about how we can reach empowerment at a team level, to tackle this dilemma, we need to move a level up and get a bit deeper into understanding the organizational structure from a product and from a tech perspective. So hence, if your environment is complex and restructuring is not an option or within your level of influence, here are a few steps that helped us to mitigate this, or at least try to move closer to it. So first of all, something really everybody can do is be proactive in talking and collaborating with teams in your same journey or user flow. So this probably sounds trivial, but as you might know, it's very easy to get caught up in your day-to-day work, right? And silo yourself from the other teams, especially now, right? Working remotely or now having teams working from different countries. But this is very crucial to be and take the time to be proactive, to collaborate as a teams, but that is also, speaking for the managers and stakeholders, because this will really help the teams to understand what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, and also to understand how the underlying architecture and system between each other interact and interrelate. There are for sure, for what are the best collaboration practices, there are a lot of presentations and good tips out there. But as a starting point, the Agile toolset already gives you many useful methods that you can use as a solid basis. So if you have the luck to start a project from start, like we are doing right now, what is super useful is doing a lean inception. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's basically a multi-day workshop that helps to bring together all the stakeholders and all the teams to really align on the vision, on the goals, and as well gives you the possibility to talk about how you want to distribute the work and the ownership. Otherwise, as well, having shared artifacts, like now we have Miro and all these amazing tools, or just setting up, simple ways of working sessions can help you to get closer to that and finding the right process for that. Furthermore, once you have a good understanding of the teams in the same floor, what is the next steps? So next step would be really make sure that all the teams that are on the same journey also work towards the same goal, because what we've seen often, maybe teams are managed from different people or are not talking or don't have this holistic view. So teams in the same user journey have different goals. And so as you can imagine, you work and you pull in different directions, which in turn gives you less impact that you could have if everybody would pull in the same direction. And lastly, once you've learned and collaborated and aligned on the same goals, this will as well help you and lay the foundations to within your teams and between the teams to propose alternatives and to reduce dependencies. So you could do little spikes to see, okay, what can we do, a cost benefit analysis, or what would it mean to move to this new system? Of course, if it takes 2-3 months and you're not creating any user value, it's probably not worth it. But maybe you find a more lean approach, a simple way to reduce this dependencies. So in summary, what can we say? So as we said, from a team level, collaboration between the teams, make sure you have aligned goals, and this in turn will lead you to a better understanding of the vision, better understanding of the architecture, that will in turn hopefully help you to reduce the dependencies from within your team. From the customer side, this will bring a better understanding of the user flow, and as a consequence as well, enable you to build more seamless user experiences and build more valuable products. From a business perspective, it's very important that tech and product are aligned, and also as you scale and as you go for the management to be open to restructure the team as needed, because ultimately what we want is that teams are more accountable and are able to create more meaningful impact. And because ultimately it's in the best interest of the company to move towards a more self-steering organization, which is key if you want to scale and maintain as well a clear and sustainable architecture.
Thanks for these insights, Iska. So we're already approaching the end of our talk. So let's take one last step back and see what we did overall. So when we set out on this journey to create meaningful impact, there were a lot of obstacles, and frankly, there still are ahead of us. And it looked like we're never going to get anywhere to improve the situation. However, I think we were able to share that we slowly but surely managing to get closer. Not with magic tricks, as I said at the beginning, but with small steps and a lot of patience. So let's sum up what we talked about in the past 30 minutes. So in order to overcome situations where the team is faced with predefined products and deadlines, collaborate with the management on the goal and the scope, strive to set discovery-related goals, and fake it till you make it in order to make up for the lack of validation of the problems and solutions beforehand.
And if you want to go one step further when it comes to have a more meaningful impact in your teams, and you see that there is still a big disconnection between the part of the process where it is decided what to do and the part of the process where it is decided how to do it, then pay attention to the relationship between these two parts, discovery and delivery team usually, and find the ways to collaborate more and more and to work as a team together.
Last but not least, really truly enable teams to work as empowered product teams, because having effective software teams is the only way that you can deliver value continuously and sustainably. And furthermore, as many managers probably know, in such a competitive market where attrition is high, it's very crucial to keep people engaged and motivated.
So yeah, step-by-step approach to create meaningful impact. This is the title of our talk today, and to create meaningful impact is what we strive to achieve every day. And we think it's actually what is behind the teams that are truly motivated and enjoy their jobs. So we've learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way, which we hope we were able to share with you. And the more important one, we think it is that it is a long process, but it is possible to get very far by following a step-by-step approach. So yeah, we are still in the middle of the process, so keep learning. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed our talk, and this is the time for Q&A.
Thank you very, very much for an inspiring talk. Two things that like burned itself into my memory was collaboration, and empowerment. And I think that is a great North Star for us to take into any organization. There's so far one comment around your talk that someone posted, which is, so should every team behave as a small startup?
That's a very good question. I will say that yeah, it's when the company is big, it's more difficult to look at the teams in that way, because what we mentioned during the talk, you have very different areas or people or teams that should be collaborating together to find their goals, right? And it's usually more complex than just putting one people from marketing, one people from sales, and one from each of the areas and create this startup, because there is a lot of interconnections between other teams or other products, etc. So I find this like very difficult to implement in big companies. But for us, as we shared, I think the more important thing is to collaborate. And it sounds really simple, but it's not that common to find it, especially in big companies, when there are usually silos around teams.
Yeah, actually, that's maybe a really nice lead over to one of the other questions I had in mind. Is you talked about that it's harder in big companies. So how would you actually convince management to collaborate with you?
I think it's exactly how we got to the step-by-step approach, because it was essentially because we started so small by just what I talked about, by collaborating with the manager in the sense of setting OKRs for our team that would be more helpful for us, which is essentially not really relevant for the customer on the other side. It was just for us to motivate us and help us. And I think because the management then saw, oh, this is actually working and making better and saving us money, we were able to then also talk about the next steps we could do together. And also, I think what helps, and I mean, that's quite straightforward as well, is maybe don't start with the most critical product. So we also, looked into areas where we knew, okay, we are able to move the needle without risking revenue also. And I think just by looking at what are the easy things you can do and how can you build on top of that, I think it's just what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds a little bit that one initial part is about building trust and also just opening that communication channel with management, building trust, and then also showing results in that way, as you said, maybe not having the critical product, but showing that, hey, we're experimenting here and we're able to move the needle. And then from that, you can then expand in how you collaborate with management, having kind of built this, this proof that this is actually the right approach.
Exactly. So essentially, you are in the same boat. Your manager should not be your enemy. So and it's like just showing this and just making it work together for everyone. It's like, again, it sounds so simple, but I mean, it's pretty hard. It's not that easy in everyday life.
Yeah. So then I guess my next question would be, what is next for you? Your journey was already very exciting. Where are you going next?
Yeah, I think, Iska, do you want
Yes,
to?
so yeah, for us, we didn't manage yet, right, to have full end-to-end ownership, but it just means now continuing on that journey. Like for one product, right, we're doing a cost-benefit analysis to see as well if we are convinced that it makes sense to invest all the time and effort to do this change, and then as well, convince the management or the stakeholders to do so. And on the other hand, on the new project we just started, we just did a three-day inception. So at least now we laid the foundations to align on the goals, on the vision, get to know each other as well on different teams, because I think 12 developers involved of 3 different companies. And now it's really to find these right processes and collaboration techniques that work, that help us to focus and as well involve the right people at the right time. So let's see what learnings come out from there.
Yeah, actually, in our team, we have another challenge, I will say maybe the 4th dilemma for next talk, which is about in this case, the disconnection between the team OKRs and the company level OKRs, which is actually, like it sounds like kind of our next steps, because right now we are very happy with the OKRs we are working with. But still there is this disconnection. It's very difficult to see the direct impact from our OKRs and the company ones. So yeah, it's going to be.
But we've heard, right, that the new CTO is aware of that, and they are tackling that. But of course, that takes time. So.